Hello, I'm Brianna, and I'd like to introduce you to our garden. It's July 14th today, and we just have finished a heavy rainy weekend. We had a lot of family over, had a lot of fun. Haven't been in the garden for a few days, but it's still looking pretty good, pretty lush and green, and so I'd like to show you around. First of all, what we've got is a long row of beans. I know that looks pretty crazy, and honestly, we're not quite sure what we're gonna do with them. And then we walk over here, we've got our garden shed, and the first thing we see as we walk up here is we've got our pyramid of strawberries, which the first one has been weeded out. We didn't mulch it very well this winter, so it hasn't bared really this year. It's not weeded out at the moment, but it was weeded out about a week ago. And behind it over there you can see we've got a tarp over our second strawberry pyramid because we didn't plant it last year, and so it needed a lot of work. And so right now we're just killing off some weeds with some black plastic, and we weighted it down with some crates. And then right here we've got some potatoes. We've got quite a few rows of potatoes that we planted, mostly Kennebec, but some red potatoes. Actually, not many red potatoes if I remember correctly, mostly Kennebecs. Last year we bought a 100-pound bag, or a 50-pound bag, and we planted them on the other end of the garden last year, but they did so well and we dug up so many that we got almost 1,000 pounds, and we used a lot of them. And when spring came, we pulled out everything that was left, and most thing was in tubes, and we planted them up, and we hilled them and weeded them. And let's see, about a month ago, today's July 14th, about a month ago, we went through and weeded them really well and hoed them and hilled them really high with the hoe, mostly me, but my husband also. We rototilled in between them in each row, and then once they were rototilled so that the ground was soft, we hoed them up really well and weeded out anything. And at that point they were really only about this high maybe out of the dirt, and we hoed them, hilled them, and look how much they've done in about a month. And we just went through, as you can see right here in this row, we went through and dug some potatoes for our family reunion this week, and we had some volunteer helpers that didn't really know, and as I didn't really know, that you don't have to dig up the whole potato, and so, or the whole plant, you can dig around them. So they were dug up, and we're missing out this row, but we're hoping to plant some more because we've still got plenty of growing season this summer. And let's move on a little bit so this video is not too long. Next we've got our onions, which we do try to keep weeded also. We've also dug up a few right here in this row, but they're doing beautifully, and we just bought white sets, I think, this year, and kept them weeded really nicely while they were young, just to give them a head start on the weeds. And as you can see, the weeds right here are kind of filling in, but to be quite honest, I was out there. As we move on to the beans, we've got 4 rows of long beans here that match the other 2 long rows that I've already shown you. They're mostly green beans for canning. They're a nice hearty mix. And about the weekend, so let's say 10 days ago, they were still small enough that we could almost fit a rototiller between the rows. And I weeded them completely weed free, and now in the last 10 days, poof, there they go, and they've got a head start. And as you can see, there are some weeds down there which I could go through and get, but honestly, they're like this. You can pull them, and they were rototilled, and the ground's wet, so they come right out. But honestly, they don't even need it. They're just so healthy, and we will probably try and get the edges so that the ground doesn't overtake them. Next, we've got peppers that were planted from starts right here. And when they were young, I also kept them hoed really well, and they could use it a little bit right now. And then past there, where these stakes are right here, are some blueberries, and they haven't done very well. We're working on them, and they kind of need to be weeded at the moment. It's all kind of grassy right there. I'm not sure what we're going to do with that. And our peas didn't get in very early this year, so they're just kind of free eating in the garden. And here's a bunch of vining plants that need to be weeded pretty bad, but we don't have very hot weather here in New York State, so we don't expect too much out of there except for some summer squash. This is our compost pile from last year with some volunteer pumpkins, we think. We're waiting to see what'll come up. Here's our this year's compost pile, just a couple crates I put up so the kids don't miss where they're throwing things. And then this part of the garden is a beautiful part of the garden that last year my husband put a load of manure on, and it was black as black could be. Actually, it was a few years ago, and it had sat here and the dirt was just beautiful. So last year we planted our potatoes here, which is why we got like 1,000 pounds. So this year our tomatoes are going here, and they're looking really good this year, nice and tall. And when they were really young and before they were staked, I went through and cut off all the suckers, which is when you look at the armpits of any, let's find one right here so we can show you. When you look at the armpits of any plant, well, Giselle, I taught my little 8-year-old how to do it, and so, okay, here one. So when they're first starting, do you see right here how there's an armpit in the plant? There, this branch, this is the main branch, and then this branch is growing out of it. This one right here is growing out of the middle, and it's not doing much, but it'll make a lot of leaves. We just snap it off like that. There you go. And then it'll heal itself up on that little spot. But what happens is, if you do that at the very bottom, then the energy goes into making tomatoes instead of making new leaves and new branches. So, like that right there. See that? And then these tomatoes will do something great. And then my grandpa went through and staked them all so they're nice and tall. But meanwhile, we've got some other plants through the tomatoes. And we've got, let's see, spinach here, this row that we cut for salads all this weekend. And then there's a row of carrots. And then another row of carrots and another row of carrots. And the spinach goes on and on and on to Swiss chard. And later on I'll give you a great recipe for cream Swiss chard that Ezra's grandma taught me. And then we got more carrots along here and more carrots, and then 2 rows of weeds down there because we rototill in between the rows. And then those rows we expected more carrots to come on, but somehow they didn't get sown. And then here we've got some vines that we hope are going to be melons, and we're pretty excited because we've never had this big of vines this early in the year, but we planted them and kept them weeded. And this part of the garden still needs to be developed. You know, a lot of the garden looked like this last year, but we've been working on it. And then there's some, here's our hammock and our bridge. Here are the girls coming to scream. And here's our corn. It says knee-high by the 4th of July, and it's 10 days past the 4th of July. And it's a little bit high for now. We have not had the greatest luck, but my husband fertilized it recently, and that's what it's doing. This is called Incredible, and we're hoping it'll do something incredible. So that's our garden. Anyway, so that's the end of our garden tour for July 14th, 2014. I hope you liked it.